All right, people at home, can you hear me now? Okay. We're gonna get a little bit of feedback. Michael's just learning how to do these too. What you're gonna have to figure out is how to. That's gonna be a. Make sure that you guys are muted on Zoom. Is that better? No. Sorry about this. Michael's good at this, but he's not a regular guy, so he's just learning Zoom. So we'll figure that out. Come and talk to us.
Well, Marshall and I never had deep philosophical conversations. To me, he was just pure love. We speak louder. Is that better? When we would see each other, we would just hug. And it was just so wonderful. And he would smile, and I'll never forget his smile. And that's how I picture Marshall. Is lovely, and I picture him in yellow. Picture him in yellow and just glowing, and that smile being so big.
I'm Wendy. I met Ron and Marshall the day they got married. I was working in the church, so I couldn't go to the actual service. But they came into the office with this gorgeous cake that Marshall had made and shared it with us. And I took a picture of that cake because he had made chocolate flowers, leaves that he put on the top of the cake. And it was one of the yummiest cakes I had ever eaten. And at one point I asked him, I said, if I ever have a celebration where I need a cake, would you be willing to let me buy it from, would you make it for me? And he said, yes. Well, that won't happen. But as was already said, wonderful hugs, and just one of the most amazing, loving personalities. And I'm forever grateful to have known him, and I miss him. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. I think we're better. I'm not echoey. All right. We can get through all these things. The hard part, the one thing we can't get through is that, you know, Marshall used to make cakes for every occasion, and he didn't make any for today. We're going to have to get by with other things. There will be treats after service, so that if you're afraid to come up here and talk, you can go get treats and sit down at a table and talk and share. Because that's sharing that you do, the stories that you tell, how you knew Marshall and how you continue to have him in your heart. Those are precious stories. And so if you don't do it now, please do it during that time of eating all those non-Marshall cakes. Who else would like to share?
I'm Joe Patanzo, and I'm a recovering Catholic. I met Marshall and Ron also about 6 years ago when I first came to St. Francis, although I didn't put them together as a couple. shortly after I arrived, I became a member of one of the teams here that met on Tuesday mornings. And Ron was working in the office at that time, and answering phones and doing whatever he could to help out. And that's how I came to know him and what I came to know of him. But there wasn't a Tuesday morning that he didn't have time for a brisk conversation. He, very snappy sense of humor. And we would volley back and forth for, it seemed like 10, 15 minutes every Tuesday morning, kind of a deal. And that was the relationship we had. Then I met this guy, Marshall. And I met him in a different set of circumstances. I met him in a 12-step group that I attend. And I came to know him as a person that I always thought that we were a lot alike. He was the person I wanted to be. He always had a smile. He was always genuinely warm and genuinely listening and taking time. It wasn't, how are you doing? I'm doing fine. Boom. Kind of a thing at all. It was the real deal with him. And he always had a kind word. He was always there for a hug, for a greeting, kind of a deal. And then after a while, I finally put together that Ron and Marshall were together. So it takes me a while. And then I would see him every Sunday morning at service when he came. And he would be sitting next to Pastor Jim right up there. I always thought he did something wrong. He sat right here. Kind of a deal. I will miss Marshall dearly. He was just a wonderful, wonderful man. Thanks.
Joe, unlike you might have heard that I did put the two of them together as a couple. In fact, I'm responsible for that whole relationship. It was all me.
Yes.
They had a long relationship long before me, and they lived it wonderfully and well, didn't they? Who else would like to share today? Please remember, if you don't share at this time, to share over there. Or call the family up and say, this is how I knew Marshall. And I'm so thankful for them. Please share those stories. Share them with each other. Because as we share, this view of a man that we knew so well becomes even deeper and broader and more wondrous. Share those stories so that everyone knows who it is that you knew, and they can be blessed by that. So let's sing again.
Shepherd me, O God, beyond my wants, beyond my fears, from death into life. Shepherd me, O God, beyond my wants, beyond my fears, from death into life. God is my shepherd, so nothing shall I want. I rest in the meadows of faithfulness and love. I walk by the quiet waters of peace. Shepherd me, O God, beyond my wants, beyond my fears, from death and truth, my spirit shall sing the music of the Lord. Shepherd me, O God, beyond my wants, beyond my fears, from death into life. Though I should wander the valley of death, I fear no evil, for you are at my side. Your rod and your staff, my comfort and my hope. Shepherd me, O God, beyond my wants, beyond my fears, from death into life. You have set me a banquet of love in the face of hatred, crowning me with love beyond my powers to hold. Shepherd me, O God, beyond my wants, beyond my fears, from death into life. Surely your kindness and mercy follow me all the days of my life. I will dwell in the house of my God forevermore. One last time. Shepherd me, O God, beyond my wants, beyond my fears, from death to life.
You know, the first song that the Raggedy Band sang was that one, Tears in Heaven, which Eric Clapton wrote about the death of his son. And it echoes with me in a death like this. For it opens up all the questions of what now? All the struggles of what's happening. Why can't I be with him? Why can't I have him sit beside me? Because we sat right there next to each other for years. And then, of course, that big guy that we both loved, Ron, passed away. And Ron was Marshall's ride here at church. And so everything kind of changed. And he kept coming to church, but he had to ride his bike from where they live down to here, which is not a short ride for most of us. I think it was a short ride for him. So sometimes he would come to the early service where I sit up here and congregation sits there, and so I didn't get to sit with him as much. It came a little bit later when it was a little hotter, then he could sit with me. But suddenly things began to change. And then Ron got sick. Excuse me, then Marshall got sick. Sorry about that. And the struggle to come to church was harder. The struggle to overcome the weakness of his own body, and the struggle of that became more difficult. And so what you sang about that retelling of Psalm 23 that you just sang was important, because that is about shepherding us from death into life. And that's what we were trying to find in the midst of all this. Ron and Marshall and I, and maybe all of you, are trying to figure out what to do in the midst of where death comes and life is not the same and changes happen, and we have to move into a different way of being and relating and becoming. And with someone like Marshall, it's hard to want to become something different because he's so perfect where he's at. He loved so well, and his smile and his laughter was so joyous. And I want to hold on to all of that. Don't you? And yet life draws us forward. We have to figure out Where do we find him now? I have a favorite poem that at least helps. It says, I am the wind in the trees and the song of a bird. I am moonbeams in the midnight sky and a glorious rainbow after the storm. I am morning dews and freshly fallen snow. I am a butterfly flying overhead and a puppy happily at play. I am a gentle touch, a warm embrace. Open your heart to know I am not gone. Reach deep into your soul, you will find me. I am here, have no fear. I am with you always. I don't know exactly what space in life speaks Marshall to you. We go back to that space often. Go back and hear his voice and feel his presence again and come to know that he's not there. At first, all we feel is the life that ended. And what we have to figure out right now is the life that never ends. Because someone like Marshall doesn't go away. Because the way he loved us doesn't go away. When I first came to St. Francis, and I got to tell you, coming to St. Francis is kind of a scary thing for a pastor because they're kind of a strange congregation. Kind of a challenging congregation. And at that same time, these two big, wonderful men walked up to me and said, can we sit with you? Can we be your friends? Can we be here in this space with you because we're new as well? And they were such a joy for me, such a strength for me, such a presence that helped me to be able to negotiate through all of that time of relearning the congregation. And so when I think of Ron and Marshall, I think of this scripture from Romans that says this: who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall trouble or hardship or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword? No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through the one who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God or from the love of Marshall. His love lives on in us. And we get to continue to breathe it in, feel it with us, hold it in ourselves and be strengthened and empowered by it. And we also get to breathe it out so that the people around us feel that amazing presence that he was for us. Love never dies unless we forget to continue loving. Ron stayed alive through Marshall. Marshall stays alive through us. We get to breathe that love in and breathe that love out. The Ron service, I read this piece by Marianne Williamson, and I'd like to read it again because it's so important. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be the brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous person that I am? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. One of the reasons why Ron and Marshall were so important to me is because they knew exactly who they were. And they were not ashamed or denying all of that at all. They lived into the truth of themselves. Marshall and I, as we walked through that time of saying goodbye to Ron, discovered how wondrous he is in the midst of losing the one that he loved so much. So for the last 4 years, we've had to discover a newness about both of us. And Marshall grew and grew in my heart. He became ever so much more than what he'd been before. And it's not because he hiked the trails of the Santa Fe Trail or whatever other ones, because I didn't meet him there. It's not because he made cakes for all of my celebrations, although he made some pretty amazing ones for your celebrations, didn't he? They told me about a cake that was a 3-tiered cake that hung from the ceiling. All of those places are places that are precious, and you should remember him if that's where you met him. What I remember was him sitting with me and occasionally holding my hand. I remember him holding onto me as he came in and hugging me in the midst of grief and in the midst of other times which were not full of grief. I remember him being with me in such a space that I knew that I was not alone, for he was there with me. I saw in him the epitome of the song that we sing here at St. Francis all the time. I see the light of God in you. And that idea of being the light of God is something that Ron lived out perfectly. His smile radiated the light of God. His laughter that you could hear so wondrously whenever he was in a room lived out that light of God. This Sunday, we happen to be singing a song called Dance. And it's kind of a fun song. It's an energetic song. It says, dance in the moonlight and dance in the sun, dance in your sorrow and dance in your fun, dance in your discos and dance in your briefs, dance in your doubtings and dance your beliefs. And we were singing that one day, sitting right there, and all of a sudden Marshall stood up and said, will you dance with me? And he danced me across this space. You know, when Marshall, whenever I've seen pictures of him as a dancer, it feels like what I feel like when I dance in my dreams, because I was not anywhere skilled enough to be at his level of dancing. But on that day, and as I think of him, that's where he lifts me to, is to be in that space of dancing. And that's where I want you to be. However it is that you met Marshall, whatever it is that he meant for you, however it is that he touched you and lifted you and helped you to become something different, hold on to that and dance into that moment so that you will continue to hold the best of who Marshall was for you. Poet said, be the still pool, let your face reflect the wonder. Be the bud, prepare to blossom. Be the tree, grant shelter. Be the butterfly, accept the riches of the moment. Be the moth, seek the light. Be the lantern, guide the lost. Be the path, open the way for another. Turn storms into song. Be the rain, wash away, cleanse, forgive. Be the grass, grow back when trod upon. Be the bridge, reach in peace to the other side. Be the moss, temper your strength with softness and mercy. Be the soil, bear fruit. Be the gardener, create order. Be the temple, let the Spirit dwell in you. Be the seasons, welcome change. Be the moon, shine through darkness. Be the petal, let time shape and smooth you. Be the leaf, fall gracefully when your time comes to let go. Trust in the circle. To end is to begin. Marshall is sitting right beside me in my chair over there, because he sits with me all the time now, because he has become part of how I live life. How did he touch you so that you be whatever it is that he taught you to be? How is it that he is going to continue to speak through you, live through you, be in you in such a way that you will never be the same again? Marshall was a precious soul. Thank you to all of you who have given him to us and allowed us to have him with us here, even as you get to keep him where you're at. Hold on to him. Don't let that laughter fade. Hold on to him. Don't, if he picks you up and dances with you, go with him. Let him carry you across the floor. However he sings into your heart, however he dances through your spirit, keep Marshall alive, for he is a precious soul that should always be with us. Amen. Will you pray with me? Divine Spirit, my angels and my guide, please protect and nourish our blessed self, our beloved self, and surround us with your power and grace in this moment of such difficulty, in the moment of letting go, in the moment of remembering and wanting to keep Marshall with us. Also, make clear the road that is before us, the road that you would have us walk. Make easy the goals that you are trying to accomplish in our life, and soft the pillow that we rest on. Help us in this moment to become something wondrous because of this passing, or better said, because of the man who makes us cry today, because of his presence in our life. Use us to restore the smile, the happiness in each other. Use us to repair hearts in one another. Use us to promote the healing in each other's lives and to provide for each of us, all of us, even an ever more wondrous life. Thank you for the life of our friend Marshall, for who he was and who he continues to be, for how he will always be part of us. Thank you. Amen.
Awake from your slumber, arise from your sleep. A new day is dawning for all those who believe. The people in darkness have seen a great light. The Lord of our armies has conquered the world. Let us fill the city of God. May our tears be turned into dancing. For the Lord our light and our love has turned the night into day. We are sons of the morning. We are daughters of day. The one who has loved us has brightened our way. The Lord of all kindness has called us to be a light for his people to set their hearts free. Let us build a city of love. May our tears be turned into dancing. For the Lord our light and our love has turned the night into day.
So for the last 3 years, it's been harder and harder for Marshall to get up here, but he came on a pretty regular basis, and he'd ride his bike downhill to get here. And then he'd ride his bike back uphill to get home. And Bobby told me that after a while, he started calling halfway home and said, "Can you come pick me up?" As it became a little more difficult, a little more challenging. And you know, as it went along, it became earlier and earlier that he needed Bobby to come pick him up, until Bobby was driving him most places. But I love that Marshall did everything he could for as long as what he could. And he lived his life completely and wholly, fully filled with everything that he could as he lived life. Now we say goodbye, but only to the body. We say goodbye to the body because we can't hold on to him. It needed to go. It was too weak to continue. But the spirit was never weak in this man. The spirit in this man was always one of the most powerful things, and one that we should hold on to and keep hold of. And so I read one last piece for you. It comes from Roberta Decay. She says, "Maybe we dance from this elegant place, discarding our vulnerable bodies like old work clothes at the end of the day. Maybe essence enters the air flying like monarchs in migration and past roses and rivers older than wood wizards. Maybe meaning and magic stand up from the landscape like summer lightning. And for one holy moment, all questions have answers, all journeys a home, all living the roundness and warmth of a stone clutched tight in the hand." Or, and I think this describes Marshall so well, or maybe like 4-year-olds, we drop everything and simply run forward, dazzled again. Marshall lived like a dazzled 4-year-old. He lived wondrously and joyously. Go and live that same type of life and give that life to each other. Amen. Amen. Thank you, my friends. I'm going to have you guys kind of stand up here, and then all of you come on and say hi to them, and then go back there and get some food and tell stories. Will you please? Come on. And all of you online, wait for me and we'll come tell your stories. You can start from either the scary side of the line or the one that's not so scary.
This is the scary side. Here, what? I'm coming. I can grab after this.
Oh.
If that's all.
Oh.
Yeah, try that, please.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, it's all right. Take these guys, go off from back.
Okay.
Okay. So. Let's see how this works. Can you hear me now? Okay, so if you will, tell me your stories. I will record them for us and so the family can listen to them. How did you know Marshall? How would you like to share a story about him? Who has a story? You should be able to unmute yourself now.
There.
Thank you. Tell me how you knew Marshall.
I'm Hannah Chechik. I'm Marshall's first cousin. And I grew up with him since the day he was born. I lived in St. Paul, River Falls in St. Paul while he was living in Minnesota. And when he was a dancer, I've taken my girls who are now 50 and 48 to see him dance. He even would take us backstage. I converted to Judaism. He was at my conversion with me. That was like about 20 years ago. I lived in St. Paul for a long time. I don't live there now. I've had his cakes. I stood up for him when he married Ron in Denver, flew there for that. He made a beautiful cake that was covered. It was a chocolate cake, chocolate frosting, and the top was covered in chocolate leaves that were made from him he and Ron going into their yard in Denver, picking the leaves and putting melted chocolate on one side and peeling that off, and it was covered in leaves. That was his cake when he got married. For those who didn't know this about Marshall, well, you all knew he loved to cook. If you knew Marshall, he was the first person. He used to make all the chocolate chip cookie dough for Sweet Martha's chocolate chip cookies at the Minnesota State Fair. So when he was married, I talked to Martha, the owner of that company. It got really big at the Minnesota State Fair. She sent 2 huge buckets of chocolate chip cookie dough, froze them for me, and I took those on the plane to Marshall and Ron's house when they got married. And as soon as he saw it, he threw one in the freezer, took the other one out and handed out spoons. And we all ate chocolate chip cookie dough. Before he left there, he lived with me for a short time in my condo, and we would sleep on my patio a couple times just so we could sleep under the stars, and we'd tell stories and we'd laugh and cry. He finished this desk. This was Marshall's desk.
Wow.
And he loved to finish wood. So I've had this. It's been a treasure of mine that I've taken around. I live way up by Lake Superior now in Wisconsin, but this was from Marshall. And one of the things he had on his desk was this little tiny thing, and that was Marshall's. It came with the desk. I haven't had the heart to ever get rid of that. That's my connection with Marshall. I'm sad. When he died, I put a picture on Facebook, and I'm done then. I put a picture on Facebook with Marshall's picture with me and Marshall and Ron. It was at his brother Mark's wedding. I was so happy to see him. And I put on that posting, he's dancing. He and Ron are dancing in the clouds. And I love your wood. What?
That's a wonderful way to think of them, isn't it?
Yeah. And I did dance with him the polka a number of times, quite a few times. And he was hard to keep up with because he took huge steps. He was so
huge energy.
Oh, yes. Just his energy just was overwhelming. And he just wore me out with polka dancing too. He was just a beautiful person, and I will let other people speak now too.
Anna,
But thank you.
so very much.
Thank you for your words. And thank you. He loved the church, and I actually looked it up, and I kept in touch with him regularly. And I have his last recording from about a week before he died, where he ended it saying, "I love you."
Nice, nice. He radiated love. Even if he hadn't said it to you, you would have known, huh?
Yes, right. So thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Love
Who else
your
would
words.
like?
Beautiful.
Thank you. Who else would like to share how they knew Marshall?
Hi, I'm Marshall's first cousin too, and I am Hannah's sister, Retta. And hi, Hannah. And we, Marshall and I were the same age, and so we were playmates. And when we were in high school and he had a driver's license, he used to come and see me, and he would make up dances in our basement. And I'm kind of jealous of Hannah because I never got to dance with him. But anyway, thank you, Pastor, for your words and for doing this. Marshall is, I've always loved him, always will. And I'm sad too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
his main thing was, like you said, his laugh. His laugh was the most amazing thing.
He could fill a room with that laugh, couldn't he?
Yes, it was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who else has a story they'd like to tell, a remembrance? Keep telling these stories about Marshall. He is worth sharing, and tell them not just to those of us who knew him, but those who don't. Live out these stories, and remember that your tears, all of those tears that are so hard to cry right now, and that you don't want to stop yourself from crying. Just remember that those are drops of love. He filled us with lots of love, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Thank you
We
so
were
much
just-
for your.
We
Go
were
ahead.
just, anybody who knew him was blessed. I mean, yeah.
Absolutely blessed.
Yes.
All right, my friends, thank you so much. Keep him in your heart, and continue to live through his spirit. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Will you please give Carol, and I just spent the weekend with his sisters, Carol and Jerry. And
good.
will you please hug the family for me today?
I will
wish
do
I
that.
could be there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye
you.
now.
Bye-bye.